I've been in a bit of a slump lately. And I think it's because I have some goals in mind for the series, and the last couple of videos felt like they weren't really moving towards those. I mean, they kind of were, in the sense that it is a goal of mine to fill out my tree farm, and it's also a goal of mine to complete the mine and the roof, and finally get some villagers up in here. But part of the problem is that it feels better, at least for YouTube series. You'll notice that people will build things in creative mode first, and then whether they use Litematica or something like the schematic cannon, see the one next to me for some foreshadowing, and that really does tend to speed up the build process. It makes things sustainable, in the mental sense. And for a while, I had been kind of putting off building big things, because big things, well, they take more time in survival, and explaining those things kind of goes awkwardly, especially if you watched the roof video last week. But fear not, my friends, for I upgraded my server. The physical components, that is. I doubled the RAM, I added another SSD so that the cache drives are redundant now, and I'm not at risk of losing my data as quickly. So now that I have a creative mirror, I was finally able to unblock my creative block, and I built myself a house. And let's dip into third-person mode so we can take a look at the exterior real quick. It is definitely a European sort of Tudor style, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Tudor? I don't know how you pronounce that, but vaguely European. It is something that I would describe as a cross between steampunk and solarpunk, if only because we literally have some solar panels on the top. And that is going to come up again later in the tour / explanation of what is going on. But let's just take a look around at some of the features on the outside. We have what is a large, currently off, incandescent light bulb. We also have some power hookups that you can see. They're not hooked up to anything just yet, but they are going to provide power to parts of the rest of the town as I build out more stuff. We have a nice little flower box outside one of the windows here. And a very nice looking bay window from the outside, if I do say so myself, and it looks even better on the inside. So first off, we have some framed ladder from Framed Blocks. I believe we are using some Ad Astra blocks. I believe it's the same as the pillar blocks that are down below. And I just thought aesthetically that looked better than using a wooden ladder. I think, yes, it's also allowed it to be freestanding at the bottom. It's not attached to anything. Up here, we have some Create New Age basic solar panels, or basic solar plates, I should say. It generates 20 degrees of heat per second, and you can see that there's a maximum capacity of 10,000 degrees of heat. And that's also true of these, heat pumps actually don't have a capacity, interesting. But that is also true of the heat pipes, and if any of these get too hot, then they will melt down. We're managing to avoid this right now because of how we're using heat pumps, and also because of something that we have later in the build. Up top, you can also see that we have a daylight detector hooked up to a redstone link to monitor when it is nighttime, and a topaz lamp, just because it kind of looks nice. We probably could have used just a regular redstone lamp, in retrospect. I might still update this to a regular redstone lamp, but it behaves exactly like that. It's just a little bit different color. Not the light. We're not using shaders, so the light still looks like regular Minecraft light, unfortunately. So, at night, the lamp turns on, but that's not the only thing that happens at night. Let's pop on into the inside. From the front, specifically. So we've got a nice shaped awning, if I do say so myself. We have Macaw's roofs in this whole build. Is mostly Macaw's roofs, some framed blocks, and we're using a combination of warped block, I believe that's what it is, warped planks, and sealed planks from Embers Rekindled. So in this awning, we also have some cheeky glowstone in these framed blocks, and so that's how we're getting the light outside, even though I haven't actually hung a lantern or anything like that. I would have liked to have done a lantern, like probably right about here, but that would necessitate like coming down a level on the slabs, and that's not something that I kind of wanted to do. I think it would look just a little bit strange. We also have a peculiar bell from Create. I don't know if it does anything, but I just like it as sort of a literal doorbell. There is a doorbell in one of the mods, but unfortunately it requires a solid block, and we have these framed corner pillars just to accentuate the door a little bit better. And also under the awning, we have some of these dark oak stockade fences that I thought looked very nice as a bit of support, and yeah, that's about it. Let's get inside. The first floor, or the ground level I should say, because I'm using European standards for naming conventions, and I think Canada does it too. Pretty much anywhere that's not the States. This is the ground floor. So, the ground floor is very empty, with exception of this furniture station from Fantasy's Furniture, which we'll see more of very shortly. We're going to fill this in with a whole bunch of gadgets and maybe possibly some more kitchen stuff over there. I'm not really sure what's going to go in here, but over here I think we're going to have just a couple of things that rely on power, because we have effectively just a massive capacitor with a whole bunch of MV accumulators from Immersive Engineering, and they're all wired up such that they accept power from down below and eventually try to funnel it up here, where it is eventually going to provide power to the town, but right now it doesn't. Here, we also have a windmill bearing, and once again, I'm pretending that the heat from this capacitor charging is what spins the windmill, and, you know, just general convection will theoretically cause this thing to turn. It's a little bit slow because I think we only have, like, 11 wool and/or panels in here tops. But the point is, we're generating just a little bit of stress, because all this is powering is the elevator, which you have already probably seen. Let's come in here real quick. You can see that the door is open because right now the light is off. This turns on, as we'll see, due to a few conditions that are in the basement, but if we come in here, we've got our massive sort of incandescent setup with some smooth redstone lamps from Chipped. We have another redstone link up here that basically indicates whether or not this is powered. Let us also see, yes, mangrove planks. This is actually a different block in the creative build. Unfortunately, that block requires going to another dimension after fighting the Warden. That's gonna be next week's video, because I really want to finish out this build, and that means doing a whole bunch of stuff that, well, is completely new to me, and I'm actually somewhat enthusiastic about. Let's go up first, and we'll save the basement for last, because that's where we've got some real cool stuff. And actually, let's go all the way to the attic first. The attic, as you have surmised, we have the elevator control. Right now, we're just using an encased chain drive to bring the power out from that windmill bearing, and shunting it across using a gearbox into a rotation speed controller set to about 48. Well, exactly 48, I should say. I'm not sure if I like this speed. We can always change it later, but right now it's using only 192 stress units, I think? Yes. Which means that we are well under capacity for that windmill bearing, and we could speed this up a little bit if we wanted to, but 48's not a terrible speed. I might change that to 60 if I feel like it's a little bit slow. So you can see that this part of the attic is still very empty, and I'm planning on putting storage in here. But not just any storage. I am going to be deriving applied energistics in this strange new dimension that I find myself in. And it's just going to be a very basic system. We're going to probably have another MV accumulator as our block to transmit power up from the floor. And then we'll just shunt it over to this side of the room, where we're going to have a combination of applied energistics and probably some, what was it? Sophisticated storage? No, that's the barrels. Functional storage. That's the drawers, I believe. Yes. And in addition to that, I'm hoping to get some very rudimentary auto crafting going. And that means that hopefully I'll be able to start doing crafting jobs while I'm offline, or just generally automating stuff for builds that I otherwise have been having to do manually, and that's really one of the time-consuming things in building stuff. So by automating that, I'm hoping that will also contribute to reducing my slump. Now let's head back down to the bedroom, which we passed on the way up. You can see that I've left a whole bunch of open space here, and honestly, I just kind of like the way that it looks. part of this is also, if we're leaving this space open, because, you know, we kind of need to be able to connect wires from these terminals out to the actual power grid that we're going to construct later, we need to have some opening. Otherwise, the cables will complain about being, well, clipped through blocks. And I also thought this looked nicer than just having more MV accumulator chains out to the sides, which I suppose we could have done, but again, I think I just preferred this. This was the idea that I had in my brain. In fact, the whole incandescent bulb / capacitor things, plus the windmill, I built out first. Like, that was the first part of the build. It was the very first thing that I had in my mind that was kind of steampunky, and I was like, alright, let's start with that and see where my brain takes me, and that was the best part of the creative process. Hi, Editing Agent here. I realize I went off on another one of my tangents, and what I forgot to say here is that because I left the gap for the power transmission to go through, we also wanted to enclose the bedroom so that we're not losing heat in the winter, and we're not getting overly hot in the summer, potentially. So that's what I was getting at, just a little bit of thermal insulation by boxing this off. Which brings me on to moving right into... the bedroom has a whole bunch of stuff from Fantasy's Furniture, which is that thing that I told you about earlier. And basically, it's very similar to DecoCraft. The styles are a little bit more limited than that. Let's just go ahead and type up Fantasy. And you can see that we have a whole bunch of decorative blocks, and most of them are references to other games. Like, we've got Nordic and Dunmer stuff, which I'm pretty sure is all Elder Scrolls, most likely Skyrim. Venthyr, I found out, is a reference to World of Warcraft. I'm not sure about all of these, but basically the TLDR is it's all stuff from various fantasy games. And that's okay. I really like having access to some of this pre-built stuff just so I don't have to stress over, does this look good in a given capacity? We also have this lovely little partition from Quark. It's all shoji, and I thought that was nice to create like a little changing area that we'll see shortly. I also have this lovely painting. It says fast paintings, but basically it's just a mod that changes how vanilla paintings work and allows you to specify the painting that you're going to get, as opposed to just randomly putting down a painting multiple times and hoping to get lucky. I've also elected to border it with some framed blocks corner strips, and that has given it just a nice, elegant frame that I think really plays into the lighting as well. And I just picked some lovely trees because we've got, well, these look like a bunch of maple trees, which is kind of what the whole tree farm was built around. Next, let's take a look at these windows. I'm really proud of how these turned out. So we're using dark oak shutters from the Shutters mod. We're using some dark oak windows from Macaw's Windows. And if we go back into third person real quick and we come outside, we are using a combination of parapets from Macaw's Windows, dark oak picket fences. I don't think this is actually from Diagonal Fences. I think this is also Macaw's because it just converts all fences into diagonal fences by default. And I think that's it on this side. On the other side, of course, I did say that we've got our flower box, and that's one of those cases where I just used a bunch of trapdoors to surround a couple of grass blocks, and then I bone mealed them to get the random flowers that I did. Over here, we have the inside of that box window, and we have a palette from The Joy of Painting, as well as an easel with a wide painting on top of it. And I think I might try to get into paintings like this. It's basically pixel art in-game, and if we just pick up this easel real quick, I mean the palette, I should say, we've already added one of each of the dyes. It allows you to mix colors together, and we can make it really kind of gross, just sort of a dingy color by doing this sort of thing, and we can make it weird, and we can make it like sort of nasty looking, and then we can just clear it. And it basically just allows you to get more custom colors in the dye system, or by layering dyes you can replicate basically any color you possibly want, I think. And then if we were to come over to here, we can actually paint on this painting. and I can press P to plonk it in place, thanks to the plonk mod. I discovered this by complete accident, but I'm glad I did, because it also means that we can do some more stuff with decorations. Then, of course, we also have a small table from Fantasy's Furniture again, and I decided to put in a potted cherry sapling, because it just kind of looked nice. I like that little splash of color, that nice little pink. And then we have some seats from Create, because, I mean, what's a bay window without some seats to sit on? I think that just really looks nice, and I think once we clear away some of these trees, and we're going to have a garden down below eventually, maybe a shed out back with some more of the experiments that I'm going to be working on, and we're also going to have a road that goes off in that direction. We're going to have like a drawbridge over here. There's going to be a whole lot of work put into this place, and eventually I think it's going to be a view that we're going to like looking at from this bay window, so that's kind of why I decided to do it, and that's also what inspired me to put the easel in here, especially with the 2 wide, because I think if we're doing landscapes, this is the orientation that you want. I mean, it's literally landscape for a reason, am I right, guys? Moving along, we've got the bed, and just as a little bit of decorative option, I've used the Nordic wardrobe top in front of it because I thought it looked nice, like it matches the curve. The one thing I kind of wish it did was have its own little storage, but it doesn't. We'll see when we get over there that there's some more interesting interactions between this block and the actual wardrobe. But then we've also got this bookshelf, which actually stores books. Unfortunately, it only really does, I think, enchanted books and possibly vanilla. You might have the custom written books, but TLDR, it's all vanilla books as far as I can tell. That's okay, it's fine. We had a whole bunch of enchanted books that I've been just storing randomly in the base, and, well, taking those out and putting them in the dedicated bookshelf just cleared up a bit of storage that I really like. For decorative purposes, we have a book stack and some paper stacks on top of this. I've been doing a lot of research and getting back to my home dimension, and so it's become a bit of a mess up here. Moving right into the changing area, we've got this interesting interaction here. So this is a framed wall. This is a dark oak shoji door from Macaw's, and it's actually in the open position over there. Right now it is closed, and you can see that we've got this gap with the framed wall, but if I open it, it clips into the wall very nicely and makes it look like it's actually part of the screen. You know, I mean, I suppose we could have just put another one of these paper walls here, but I liked this better. And also, I briefly had one on the other side, just because I thought it could be nice if we could close this off. But again, there's a gap here. And also when you closed this, or when you opened this side, it would clip into the bookshelf, and that didn't look very great. Over here, we have some storage. This is sort of a changing area, and naturally we can close the shutters if we were changing for some privacy, but we can open those back up and let the lovely flowers in. The room itself is fairly dim because we're using the soul lanterns instead, but we're relying on the natural light from outside to sort of lighten this place up, and at night you do kind of want your bedroom to be a little bit darker. We have Nordic chest. It's full of just random stuff right now. I'm hoping to organize stuff, especially when we get into the applied energistics upstairs. And then, of course, we also have the wardrobe, which I've just put the Cloak of Balance in because I can't really think of a reason that I'm using it, and it makes that noise every time. If I click on the top of the wardrobe, it also opens the bottom, which is interesting. Again, I kind of wish that this like extended the storage, and as a result, you know, it's just like a multi-block that gives you more storage if you put this on top. But unfortunately, it isn't. I wish it acted like a chest. It doesn't, but that's okay. We've also added a couple of armor stands here. It's got my old armor set from Silence Gear. It doesn't look great, but it's nice to have a backup, and it also helped me free up some space in my backpack, so that's great. And then we just have a dresser over here. I don't really know what I'm going to put in it, but we have a fair amount of storage, more than just regular chests. So, without further ado, let's continue this tour. And first, a feature. On every level, I have created... Oh, that was a little bit too fast there. So, on every level, I have created a feature that if the elevator is on another floor, you can just step on a pressure plate and summon it back to the floor that you're on. I doubt I'm ever really going to use it. I think I'm probably going to be the only person that comes in here, but if I'm not, this is really going to help if, say, I spawn in my bedroom and somebody's ridden it down to the basement, which, incidentally, is where we probably should go next. So here we are in the basement. The basement contains possibly the most important part of this build. And that is because it is a state of progress into a couple of mods that I haven't gone quite as far in the past before. One of those, of course, is Create New Age. You saw on the roof that we have a whole bunch of the heat plates, and I've never used those before. I also haven't done that much in New Age to begin with, although obviously I used it in my Nether Portal build. That's about it. That's the surface of it. I've only used it to generate electricity so that I could move rotational energy in a more aesthetically pleasing way, and also just it looks cooler in the build's context. I also haven't done that much with Create steam engines. And there's a really interesting interaction between New Age and steam engines. And that's what we've done down here. So if I just turn around, boop, what we have here is a self-restarting steam engine. You still have to start it manually, which is why we have this crank here. But due to all of the circuitry and various things that I've put into this build, it will automatically restart itself after we've generated a little bit of power. Now obviously it's nighttime, I can't really turn it on and have it work, but during the day, these boiler plates, or boiler heaters from New Age, will take the heat from up above, transfer it through all the pipes that we've laid down the side, and into these boiler heaters, which eventually, once we get more advanced solar plates, will heat this thing up to theoretically at least tier 9. I don't know if it'll go hotter than that. I don't know if I want to find out if it'll go hotter than that. But I know for a fact that the design at least supports tier 6 heating. And that is more than enough for what I want to do down here. Which brings me to the next bit. We follow this line down here. This is part of the logic in turning itself off in case this gets overstressed, and believe me, at this low heat level, it can very easily get overstressed. The thing is, this thing sometimes dips down into passive mode, which means it generates at most 2048 stress units. These things, at the current RPM, which I think is 16, or I guess 32 because we're doubling it here, take up, 5,000, 6,000 SU a pop? And so when this thing eventually hits level 1, we can activate 2 of these magnetite coils. We're taking power out of those and into the MV accumulators that we saw in the incandescent bulb room. And you can't really see it from here, but we have all of the contacts set up such that they are accepting from the bottom and then ferrying the power into this accumulator as well as up the spine of accumulators that we've already seen. And so theoretically, as this stuff fills up, we're going to have power for both ourselves and the town. Over here is some basic progress for Create New Age. We've got an MV accumulator in order to power... Oh, and it occurs to me that I actually need to update the side so that this can accept power, which we need the engineer's hammer. We need to change this to an output so that we get power out of this energizer, or we get power out of the accumulator into this energizer. And then we also have this breaker switch, and it occurs to me that I also need to update the resource pack, or else we're going to have Direwolf 20's meat Easter egg here. And it's funny, but it's kind of immersion breaking in my opinion, so I'm just going to get a data pack and fix that. And then, once we close this breaker, it will turn on this basic motor, which will allow us to use the energizer to energize stuff in order to progress in this mod further. And that means that we'll be updating the solar plates. That also means we're going to eventually be creating a better energizer and a better motor, and this thing will get faster and we'll be able to do a bunch of stuff with this, but it's pretty much just to progress New Age. That's what it is. And now that it's starting to become daytime, let's wait until the heat is stably at 1 bar, and we'll activate the system for the very first time. And assuming everything's gone correctly in placing everything back in with the schematic cannon, this should just work. Famous last words. I think we might be able to turn the wheel, so let's just do it. And we need to wait until we see... There we go, steam engine is on. We are getting plenty of water flow because, as I said, this is now turning at 256 RPM, or not quite 256 RPM. This might be on 16 right now. Let me just double check everything's set up the way I think it should be. Yes, okay, so that's on 32. This should be on 256. I'm kind of surprised that this isn't right, or what I would expect for the stress units. Is it because... Oh, it's because this isn't fully powered. It's because I'm using a repeater here, and that's not good enough. I need... yeah, okay, that's what it is. This isn't quite doubling it. But that's okay. I don't think we need to hit 256. Even if we're going for tier 9, I think this is more than adequate speed. And if not, I'll figure out a way to make this thing power better. I could theoretically put a block here, and then this will also be at 15. But you can see right now, we are fluctuating between passive and level 1. Level 1, we have enough power that I can go ahead and activate some of the dynamos. We also sometimes are hitting level 2, but it's still early on enough in the day that it's not likely. Ah, yes. Now here are the control levers for my dynamos, or my magnetite coils. And one thing that I wanted to do was indicate when these things are on and generating power. So we're using these inverted lamps from Silence Gems. And then in the middle, we're using just a regular redstone lamp because when all 3 of these are off, this got really dark and I didn't want to put a lamp under these accumulators. It just didn't seem like it would make much sense. So when any of these are off, or when any of these levers are on, meaning the coils are off, this light is also on. Now, theoretically, alright, we should be good here. Let's just toggle these both on, and if I've done everything correctly, we should... Ooh, yep, we're seeing some power flow. We should be getting some... Oh, we're not accumulating in there just yet. But, oh wow, yes, we are accumulating in the MV accumulator though. That's great. That means that at the very least I've wired the bottom part correctly, and after the video's over, I'm probably going to check the top side to make sure that we're getting power accumulation up there as well. But, oh yeah, one last thing. We also have this redstone breaker here. So while the steam engine is on and actually rotating, and also while it is during the day, this is going to activate and break the wire here. And what that does for us is make sure that this motor isn't getting power. This is also what we're using to self-restart the steam engine. And I have just thought of a flaw that if this doesn't get any power, or if this doesn't charge up enough power, then we might be kind of SOL come the next daytime. It may be that unless we get enough power to fill up both that and this, that this won't automatically restart the next night, and I may need to crank the crank one more time. But, you know, just a night or two of doing that isn't going to be a deal breaker. This system still mostly restarts itself. In retrospect, maybe I could have put in another accumulator over here, and then, like, piped power from here to here, and then we'd have a dedicated buffer for this as well. But this is fine. I think this is perfectly fine. I don't think we're going to use enough power over here that it's going to be a problem. And speaking of over here, I may add more accumulators just so that A, yes, we have more of a buffer, but B, so that we can have more things here, like I think maybe a magma crucible. I don't think we're going to do an igneous extruder because of how they changed things. I need a little bit more space for that. We might potentially expand the basement. I don't know which direction, but that may go in there. Possibly we'll just move this wall further out in the west direction. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit in time, and if this does fill up, and if we get enough of a buffer in here, I will illustrate that, yes, this is self-restarting. And while we're waiting, one last thing. Let's illustrate the circuit breaker functionality here that I've installed. So if we overstress the machine, and we're about to by toggling this thing on, you can see that we instantly break the circuit here. This is designed such that, theoretically, in 20 seconds, whatever caused the circuit to break will have stabilized. I put this in here mostly because of heat fluctuations, so that if it drops down to a tier 1 again, and we have 2 of these coils on, a tier 0 again, and we have 2 of these coils on, it won't break the whole rotational grid, I guess. It will just shut off the circuit here, and then allow the heat to heat up a little bit more, and, well, then this will turn back on, and everything will be fine. We've just simulated that by activating the 3rd coil before we had enough stress units here, but that basically just illustrates that the system also knows when to turn itself off. Oh, okay. We are almost at enough to overflow the buffer, but not quite enough. I think we are still going to have a little bit of spillover. Let's head up to the bedroom, reset, and if I'm fast enough, we might even retain some of the heat from the previous day. By the way, the bed's totally functional. Yes, alright, very good. We've just ticked over to... Oh, nope, yep, you can see this is why I built the cutoff system, because we are currently fluctuating between the lower SU and the higher SU. And originally I was thinking of building a ComputerCraft circuit to do that. Originally I was thinking about building out a ComputerCraft program to do that for me, but the thing is, although I know I can do it in Lua, I don't think it would be particularly performant, or rather, I need to figure out how to optimize that for a server. I think doing something like sleeping 30 seconds and then running my codes to check how much SU a given network has in order to throttle the 3 whatchamacallitses, the dynamos or whatever, the coils, would be the best way to do things, but I also didn't want to delay this video any further, so that's why I put in the simple circuit that we have here, so that when this ends up hitting strength of 15, that means it's definitely overstressed because I should never get that close anyway. And then of course we toggle on the clutch, and that breaks the circuit so that this can recover, and this just temporarily shuts off. But right now we should be generating more power, and we are, and now we're building up our buffer here, and so that means that now it should be fully self-restarting, and this time I won't sleep through the night, just so that we can indicate that. And I think, how much SU do we have? Not quite enough to be able to turn on the 3rd one. So I'm going to sit here for a bit, I'm going to babysit it, and then we are going to see the moment of truth where this thing turns itself back on in the morning. Now, as it gets to night and I don't sleep through it, we should see the machine slowly but surely shut down as the heat bleeds off. And we're about to hit that lower bound soon, I think. And then once the heaters have completely cooled off, and I mean like the steam engine has fully shut down, I might go sleep then and then rush down here to see it self-start back up. But it's imperative that we let these heaters cool off first, otherwise we're going to do what we did last night and sort of ride the previous day's heat into the next day and not need to restart the boiler. But I know for a fact that we have some electrical buffer at this point in the system, and so that means that the motor that we have set up should restart the system itself. Okay, I think the steam engine has fully given up the ghost for the night. You may have heard a whole bunch of door noises upstairs, and that lets us inspect one of the interesting properties of this build, is that, oh yeah, and I didn't show the light was on in the first place. Well, when the light is off, we can come into this room and access the bulb, for lack of a better term. But basically, that's just for a little bit of extra realism. in that you wouldn't want somebody to be in here while this very exposed electrical thing is on and discharging, because A, this will be hot, and B, this will be live. And because we've got so much power in these accumulators, you don't want to be touching this. Well, one thing that you should know is that I've also included this handy button here, so that we can theoretically go into maintenance mode, and if we take a look at the bottom of the elevator pit, I have included some high voltage wire coils in these framed walls to look like springs. I have made my elevator semi-realistic. Well, we're getting into sunrise, and I don't want to miss the startup process, so let's get back downstairs, and actually, let me just fix this first. Boop. Okay, so we fixed that. Down into the basement, please. And we may also have an issue because of the weather. It might not potentially heat up fast enough, but what we should see in a moment, just as soon as, let's see, this toggles off, which it should, very shortly. Oh yeah, no, we can even see. That's exactly what's happened. The daylight detector hasn't turned off yet, and that could be because it's raining? Either that or it's not preserved the state. That is also entirely possible. To the roof! If this is the case, we're going to have to wait until day 3 in order to, Okay, so... No, yeah, I think it's just because it's raining. I think this is just on because it's raining. Which, admittedly, is a bit of an issue with the system. If I had like a comparator up here, which is something that I might do, I may need to get a comparator output from this and then do a subtraction. No, yeah, that's legitimately just it. It's the rain. We've gotten unlucky, and it's raining on my parade, literally. It is literally, we are literally rained out. This is, I'm so annoyed. Ugh. So yeah, I really need to make a teru teru bozu, and that is something from Japanese culture that is added by Botania, I believe. And we do have that in this pack, and what it does is, if you, I don't know if it's just if you right click on it, or if you give it something, then it resets the weather to sunny. And it's basically like this little ghost thing that you hang outside of your house, and it just makes the weather better over time. If the rain doesn't clear, then when it hits nighttime again, I'm totally just gonna roll out my sleeping bag and we'll just sleep down here instead of my nice bedroom that I've built myself, and we will force the weather to clear up that way, and we'll at least be here for when this thing turns on. It has done nothing but rain for the last 10 minutes. This is so disappointing. But as soon as the clock hits 30, we can go to sleep. Okay, let's clear that weather. Okay, and now we know for sure that the heat should be fairly low. Yes, there we go, and it automatically started. So you can see that the motor has a bit of a buffer now, because in the instant that the circuit was on, that is to say, which is triggered only when it is daytime, and also the system is not currently rotating thanks to this speedometer over here hooked up to a comparator, then we know that the system is not on, so this breaker turns off, connecting the circuit, which briefly, very briefly apparently, puts some stress units back into the system. And it'll also do that if the steam unit, or if the stress unit gets below the 2048 or whatever the tier 0 is. So if the system for whatever shuts off during the day, like it just did, this will again automatically react and turn itself back on real quick. So although the redstone isn't perfect, especially when it comes to that door up there, it will trigger on and off a bunch of times just because I haven't figured out the signal smoothing just yet. It's a pretty robust system that manages itself. So I'm briefly going to go ahead and check to see if we're actually getting any power buffer upstairs, and then after that we're going to show you the light, and then that'll be it for this episode, I think. And we have come outside because now the main focal point of the build should be illuminated, and fingers crossed, haha, it's lit! the light bulb is lit! And with that, that's probably going to do it for today. As I mentioned, next week we're going to have an adventure into the Deeper Dark, I believe it's called. It's the other side? It's like the underside, it's like the upside down, but it's the other side, I'm pretty sure. Which means we're going to the Deep Dark, we're going to kill ourselves a warden, we're going to another dimension, all to get the stone to complete this room behind me. And also, please stay tuned, we are going to have a Create Mods tutorial for the Steam engine, or rather, the self-restarting Steam engine components, I should say. But that is going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified. And as always, I'm looking forward to your feedback in the comments below. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody! In the upper left is the next video in the series, or a video you might like. In the lower left is the series playlist, and on the right is my icon by which you can subscribe. Thanks again for watching!